You know what you should read.
It's time for What You Should Read, the podcast all about the titles you need. Join 3 book lovers and a guest as they cover all the best new titles to enjoy with your tea.
I have that, but I haven't read it yet.
Hi, I'm Julia.
I'm Rachael.
And I'm Kelly.
And this is What You Should Read,
The podcast where we should all over our books.
I feel like it's been forever since we've recorded.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Through the magic of editing, we didn't record last week. We recorded 2 episodes the weekend before. So it's good to be back. It is 90 degrees here in Baltimore this weekend.
It's also 90 degrees here in Maine.
Also 90 degrees in Salisbury, where I am.
Okay, great. So it's like we're all in the same place, which is lovely.
Yeah, but only one of us is dealing with cicadas.
Yes.
We want to go tubing later. And I'm like, the cicadas are going to be flying into
Yeah.
But I would think we're going to do it anyway. It's too hot out to not do something.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for today. It's our book club episode. We will be discussing Honey Girl. But first, Rachael, what are you reading this week?
So I read Pumpkin and I loved it so much by Julie Murphy that I sort of have been like, I didn't know what to pick up next, because I didn't think anything was going to be as good. So I decided to pick up a little comfort read, Anne of the Island by L.M. Montgomery. So the 3rd book in the Anne of Green Gables series. And I'm just really excited. It's the one where she goes to university and, there's fun and new friends and, boys vying for her affection. So it's going to be cute.
I love that one.
Yeah.
I spent a whole summer reading all of the Anne of Green Gables books when I was in middle school. And I just remember like sitting in my room eating Tootsie Roll Pops and reading Anne of Green Gables. And that's my association. What a life. What a time to be alive.
No.
Kelly, what are you reading this week?
I am reading Jay's Gay Agenda by Jason June.
Nice.
I'm about halfway through. It's so cute.
Aww.
It's so cute.
It sounds so good.
Yeah. Oh my God. And the really funny thing is, okay, so Jay came from a small town and now lives in a city where there are multiple gay people, and he's so excited. But his gay agenda, he hasn't done anything. So he like wants to meet a gay guy, and like he wants to kiss, maybe ideally at a dance. Aww. And just like all these movie romantic comedy moments, he wants them all, and it's so sweet. And at the same time, it's like, oh, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't get romantic comedy moments in real life. Hardly anybody does, but hopefully he'll get something like, I don't know, some rain-soaked, meet cute or whatever. So.
Everyone deserves to have at least one romantic comedy moment in their life.
Yeah.
I am reading It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. It's a rom-com, and it's basically kind of like a novel version of Schitt's Creek. So the main character, Piper, she gets into some trouble and loses her access to all of her money. She's like a rich socialite. Her job is basically being an influencer, but then something happens and her stepdad's like, I'm cutting you off and sending you away. And so she goes to live in this small Pacific Northwest town. And I'm just there. She's just getting to the town now where I'm at. So I'm pretty early in the book, but I love it so much. The main character, Piper, I know, Kelly, you've probably already said this before talking about this book, but she is a lot like Alexis Rose in Schitt's Creek. And there's this one scene where Tessa Bailey describes her, and it's like, there's this guy watching her from the window, and he says she has her wrists limp and her shoulders up, like she doesn't want to touch anything. And she's like, I don't want to touch anything. And I'm like, that is such a perfect description. I can see it in my mind. So
that's great.
It's so fun. It's definitely a cute, fluffy, like I'm sure I could, if I had the whole day, which I do, I could probably just like blaze through it. So
Nice.
She's a little bit Alexis.
she's just a little bit Alexis. Great.
Oh, God, I loved that book so much. It was just such a delight.
Mhm.
And I'm very excited to tape the interview with Tessa Bailey. So if you have any questions, anybody shitheads out there, please send them to us.
Yes,
We
we'll be
can get
talking to
everything
her.
for everybody.
And the book comes out in July. So
Yes.
definitely pre-order it.
Yeah. Well, what is not a little bit Alexis? We have 2 pieces of book news. We recently marked the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, which of course is an event that most people didn't even know about until a few years ago. Even apparently people in Tulsa didn't know about it.
Wow.
A friend of mine is in TV news there, and they've been covering it a lot, and there are all these comments on her posts like, "Oh, I didn't even know about this." And what's super interesting is that a couple years after the massacre, one of the survivors published a book, The Nation Must Wake. The Nation Must Awake, I'm sorry. Eyewitness to the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921 by Mary Jones Parrish. And she talked to other survivors and had pictures and firsthand accounts. And it was kind of self-published in Tulsa a few years after the massacre. And now her granddaughter or great-granddaughter found out about the book. Nobody in the family even knew about it or talked about it. And she got it actually republished, and you can pick it up at the bookstore of your choice. It's also on Amazon, available as an ebook as well. I don't think Audible or Libro FM, but ebooks and physical copies. It looks really good and really, really hard to read.
Wow, it's amazing that it was kind of lost a little bit until now. I mean, I guess everyone is finally talking about what happened. And like you said, a lot of people didn't even know about it beforehand, which is awful that we just sort of, swept it under the rug. And probably there's a lot of things. I know there's a lot more cities that had something similar happen that nobody talks about. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad that there's this firsthand account that now we can read.
Yeah.
And it's also scary to me because they know 30 some people died, but it could have been up to 300. And I think they found one mass grave, and they found something else that might have been a mass grave.
Wow.
And it's just scary to think that, definitely dozens and possibly hundreds of people just disappeared,
Yeah.
and nobody talked about it.
Yeah. Oh.
But another piece of book news, world's worst segue. So Elin Hilderbrand, Twitter's probably second or third least favorite author.
I think it was Instagram. I think she got in trouble on Instagram, actually.
Oh, it went to Twitter as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Book Twitter is relentless.
Book social media's third or fourth least favorite author, Elin Hilderbrand, recently released a book called Golden Girl. It came out this past Tuesday on the most very expensive Tuesday. And in it, the teenage main character, I think Vivian is her name, for reasons unknown, she is going to be hiding out for the summer at her friend's house. And they make a joke that the friend's parents wouldn't even know she was there, right? And, you can just hide in the closet or hide in the attic. And the main character was like, hide in the attic? Like Anne Frank? And people correctly pointed out that that is really not a great reference to make. Certainly glib and trivializing a horrific event that murdered many, many millions of people, including a 13-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
So, or I guess 15, right? Because she was there for a while. But this also raises a couple of other issues. Elin Hilderbrand came under fire recently for commenting on at least one, but I think maybe multiple negative reviews of one of her books. She was not tagged, but they used her hashtag. She found it. She didn't like the review. She made some very melodramatic comments, including, "This makes me wish I had never been born." And that's pretty close to being a direct quote. I know "wish I had never been born" or "wish I had not been born" was definitely part of it. Um, and I'm wondering if maybe an Anne Frank reference, while constantly clumsy, would be as big a deal if any other author had said it.
I think probably if it had caught the attention of book Twitter, I think maybe it's more likely that authors that book Twitter have problems with, they're going to be looking for stuff. So,
So
if it did, what?
Oh, sorry. I was just like, it may have taken longer with
Right.
a different author.
Yeah, it may not have happened right as the book came out. I'm surprised it didn't happen before it came out, if people reading arcs and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can look at Naomi Novik, right? I don't think that, well, she might have been on people's radars, like kind of appropriating cultural appropriation in some of her other books before the Deadly Education thing came out. I'm trying to think of if there are other examples of this happening, but yeah, I mean, I think it would have been a big deal, but I don't know if it would have been caught, like Rachael said, as early. But certainly there's some pride, there's some joy, right, that people are taking with catching her out in a mistake.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think you said it perfectly, Kelly. Like, it was glib and, in poor taste. I just think an unnecessary reference. Like, she could have written that in so many different ways. She could have been like, you want me to like live in the cupboard like Harry Potter? Like, there could have been some other reference to be made. But yeah, I wonder, has she responded?
Yes, she did actually. And that was going to be my next point. But basically she listened and did not get defensive.
Good.
Contacted her publisher, asked them to take that reference out, and it will be, I'm guessing, fixed in future printings of the book. And they've already fixed it in ebooks, which is one of the things I have, and I wanted to see the context. Because, I mean, I would take it differently if it was a 13 or 14-year-old saying it as opposed to like a 17, 18, 19-year-old. And also, like, if there was any sort of, "wow, I can't believe I said that," comment later.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that as someone who spent the better part of a year and a half not leaving my house, I made flowers in the attic references. So, I mean, you could definitely do that, like just staring forlornly out the window, like Kathy Foxworth. So,
right, that's another thing she could have referenced.
Yeah,
that is well known.
Story. Yeah,
but
it's interesting that I'm glad that she like corrected it. I think that's good. I certainly don't think that this one thing alone would like damn her forever. It does seem like it was probably an honest mistake that she feels bad about now and wants to take out. Hopefully like something like that won't happen again, but I mean, the drama with her reviews like before was just kind of like, that made me just be like, you're so dramatic.
Oh, that's a good point, because like, "I wish I hadn't been born" was maybe someone who really would think A Summer of Hiding Out was certainly on par with Anne Frank.
Right. Like, maybe you catastrophize everything and your privilege is showing a little bit.
Yeah.
But to the question about ebooks and should you be able to edit the ebook? So Kelly, you bought the ebook and it's going to automatically update?
I'm honestly not sure. I think most of the time I get a notice that an update is available.
Have
And
you already bought
then
it?
I did. It was our recent acquisitions is going to be a little bit embarrassing for me because it really was the most very expensive Tuesday, and there are still a couple releases that I didn't get. which is really impossible because there were so many. But I'm trying to, okay, so in the article, and we'll have this in the show notes, she posted a formal apology on Instagram. I want to wholeheartedly apologize for this. It was meant as hyperbole, but was a poor choice that was offensive and tasteless. I have asked my publisher to remove the passage from digital versions of the book immediately and from all future printings.
Interesting.
So it sounds like maybe they did. And it wasn't going to be one of the first things I read. Because I got The Other Black Girl, which I loved, and a bunch of others, but I did want to read and see the context. What, sorry?
I was wondering if you could do like a key term search in your Kindle.
Yeah, because I wonder if it depends on if you had downloaded it or not.
Right.
I had, yeah. Actually, yeah, let me see if I can do that. Real fast, because I know I can. If you're on Amazon, you can do a key search.
Because I feel like what they should do is, if you've already downloaded it, that's the book you bought.
Yeah.
Like a print copy. If you bought the book, you have the book. All of those current editions, the publisher can pull it, but the retailer has it, so they could still sell it. But then any future like printings would.
Right.
What they could do is they could be like, Amazon, we're going to replace your stock.
Yeah.
Please send us this stock back. And other retailers, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it really is.
This is why publishers just need to catch this stuff early, because this is gonna cost them. And I mean, yes, and also it was immoral. But and just stupid, like
poor business decision.
Yeah. Well, and like what's gonna happen with the audiobook? Like it's definitely available in that format too. Like,
yeah, I guess they could just re-record that scene.
Yeah.
Audiobook recordings are also expensive. You got to rent studio time and sound engineers and all that.
Okay, so I found it in my Kindle app specifically, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it sounds like Vivian is staying with her friend Savannah. She thinks she's going to be staying all summer, but the rule is house guests can only stay for 1 week. And Vivi is like, why didn't you tell me? You said I could stay for the summer. And Savannah's like, oh, you can, it'll be fine. Because her dad lives in Boston and is only there for the weekends. And she's like, what if it doesn't work? Just give me the plan for the worst case scenario. And Savannah said, worst case scenario, listen, my parents never ever come up here and they go to bed early. We could just say that you found a place to rent and that every once in a while you sleep over. I'll take care of cleaning your room, doing the sheets and whatnot while my mother is at the club. And then Vivi said, you're suggesting I hide here all summer like Anne Frank? Which, I mean, it's...
Even in context, it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it really...
She's basically comparing the parents to Nazis.
Right.
Goodness. And I mean, like, I really feel like this is made for Flowers in the Attic.
Yeah.
But, okay. I mean, it's
just an unnecessary reference. You could have picked something else. Yeah. Okay. Well, so it's interesting though that if they're updating it, they either haven't yet or yours won't be because you already downloaded it.
Yeah. And I did. I downloaded because I have a tendency to do that if it's something that I know I'm going to want to read pretty soon.
Right.
I just throw it on there so I don't have to worry about if I have Wi-Fi or not.
Well, I have some breaking news, another piece of book news. So a breaking piece of book news is that N.K. Jemisin's trilogy, the Broken Earth trilogy, which she won the Hugo Award for all 3 books, will be adapted into a series. So Deadline is reporting that Sony Pictures Entertainment's second 7-figure deal this week for a multi-book series is the Broken Earth trilogy, and there was a bidding war, and she's going to adapt the books herself, which is super exciting. And yeah, it's awesome. It's going to be, they don't have a lot of info yet, but it's going to happen. And it's funny because earlier, Kelly, you were like, wasn't this announced in March? And no, actually, that was the adaptation for her other series, the Inheritance trilogy. So we're just going to be getting a lot of N.K. Jemisin books adapted to the small screen, and I am excited about it.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be great.
It's going to be Game of Thrones level good because there's so much detail in the world that she builds. There's so much to explore. I'm really curious to see how it's going to be, because you could do some really cool cinematography stuff. So I can't wait.
Definitely great. Good for her.
Yay.
I'm very excited, and I'm very excited to see what streaming service it ends up on, because I really hope it's not HBO Max, just because I can't trust them to give me everything on that in a timely fashion.
Right. They've been people have been mad at them for not
you kept
providing good service
down from people.
Yeah.
So it's
the finale.
Sony Pictures Entertainment. So it actually doesn't say either if it's going to be a movie or a TV show. Maybe it'll actually be a movie.
Movie series. That would be good too.
Yeah.
Maybe we can go see it in the theater.
Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Fun. So apologies if I got that wrong, but I think it might be a movie. Not.
That's cool.
Either one will be great.
Yes, exactly. We'll take what we can get.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so it's on page 144. So maybe when we take our break, I will go. I'll go. We'll have an update.
Sounds
okay.
All right. So next we will jump right into recent acquisitions, where we talk about the books we've recently bought, borrowed, or been given. So Kelly, I know you've got a lot to share, so why don't you go first?
Oh God. Okay, so first, my book of the month came. I got Instructions for Dancing by Nicola Yoon, who I love. And The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, which is not how you say it, I bet, who wrote The Silent Patient, which I loved. I have not started either of those, but Instructions for Dancing is definitely going to happen very, very soon. Thanks to Libro FM, I got what would we even say? Advanced listening copies, we'll say, for Malibu Rising by Jenkins Reid. I read it and loved it, so I'm excited to see how the audio goes. All the Lonely People by Gayle. Live Your Life by Amanda Kloots, who is the person whose husband, the Broadway star, ended up dying of COVID. Very, very suddenly. Or, I mean, he was in the hospital for a long time, but it seemed like maybe he was getting better and not. And then Animal by Lisa Taddeo, which it sounds like a good for her book, and you know how I feel about those. Dear Miss Metropolitan by Carolyn Ferrell. Unfortunately, I am not done. I also got e-galleys for Kill All Your Darlings by Julia Bell, which has, I don't think that's the right name. Hold please. David Bell, about, I think, a woman named Julia, and it was compared. No, all of this is wrong. Okay. I also got e-galleys of Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell, which was compared to The Talented Mr. Ripley. So that sounded fantastic. And I was like, yes, please, to this. Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmerer, which looks amazing.
You got it?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
It is up on NetGalley for anyone to request. I would recommend.
Yeah, some of us don't get approved as quickly as others, so
some of us have been doing this for too long and do have Bloomsbury auto approval.
Wow, good for
One
you.
of us is much lucky. And the Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, which is called like basically a love letter to 80s slasher horror movies. And I love Grady Hendrix anyway, so obviously all over that. And finally, I bought the other Black Girl, Golden Girl, Girl One, For the Wolf, The Passing Playbook, Somebody's Daughter by Ashley Ford, so I can read and listen. I'm missing at least one or two, but I mean, it's a lot. I think that's enough.
I really want to read Girl One. That sounds good.
It does. I am very excited for that one.
Wow.
Good
Great
call.
job, Kel.
I am
Julie,
broke.
what about you?
Okay, so I bought Pumpkin by Julie Murphy because I was at the airport. Yay, I flew, which was a little nerve-wracking, but it was okay. Everyone was wearing masks. It was good. I flew to Maine for the long weekend, and I saw it in the airport, and I was like, I don't know. There's something about buying a book in the airport for me that's like, you're traveling, you're tired, you're about to get on a plane, you just want to make yourself happy. You buy a book, and you buy a book you know you're gonna love.
Oh yeah.
And I read it immediately and loved it.
Nice.
And then I got at the library, I got Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang, who wrote Exhalation, which is one of my favorite short story collections. So this one is his first one, and it has the story that the movie Arrival was based on. So I'm excited to get into that soon. For audiobooks, I also got the Malibu Rising and the Maidens. And I also got Miss Metropolitan by Carolyn Ferrell. And then with my credit, I bought a book called The Lost Queen by Signe Pike. And it's the first in a trilogy. It's like a long historical sweeping thing. Rachel, I think you would probably like it. It's about Merlin's sister, his twin sister. Yeah. So it's the legend of Merlin, but told from his twin sister, Langeroth's perspective. And she is married to like the Christian king. But she's like practices like her religion. So it's like this like tension. So I haven't started it yet, but it was sort of someone who was like, oh, I loved Pillars of the Earth. Someone was like, oh, you should read. I think it was on Modern Mrs. Darcy's podcast.
Okay.
What should I read next? Anne Vogel. And I think she recommended it to someone who said they loved the Pillars of the Earth trilogy. And I was like, I love that trilogy. So
good.
Yeah, that's mine.
Great. Is it like a long book?
Yeah.
Book? Yes.
Hours and hours. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I also, of course, got Pumpkin. And like I said, I already read it and I loved it. And then I got the most beautiful book, The Nature of Witches, which was on my June most anticipated. And I love it because when you take the jacket off, it's all like flowers and butterflies and stuff on the inside cover. So I'm really excited to read this. And yeah, I don't know if it is classified as YA, but it's like YA size hardback. So I don't know. We'll see. It might be. Can't wait to read it.
Nice. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be discussing Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, which is this month's book club pick. So stick around and we will be right back. And we are back, and today we are discussing Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, which is our most recent book club pick. So before we get into our discussion, Rachel, do you want to read the synopsis?
Sure. All right. With her newly completed PhD in astronomy in hand, Grace Porter goes on a girls' trip to Vegas to celebrate. She's a straight A, hardworking high achiever. She is not the kind of person who goes to Vegas and gets drunkenly married to a woman whose name she doesn't know, until she does exactly that. This one beautiful, spontaneous moment upends Grace's carefully laid life plans. Staggering under the weight of her parents' expectations, a struggling job market, and feelings of burnout, Grace flees her home in Portland for a summer in New York with the wife she barely knows. In New York, she's able to ignore all the constant questions about her future and falls hard for her creative and gorgeous wife, Yuki Yamamoto. But when reality comes crashing in, Grace must face what she's been running from all along, the fears that make us human and the need for connection, especially when navigating the messiness of adulthood. Oh, how true is that?
Yes. I feel like that synopsis is so perfect.
Yeah.
It really did a great job just like capturing what the book is about without telling you exactly what the book is about, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what did you all think of this book? Just, I guess we can start with just initial reactions. Kelly, why don't you start since you recommended this book actually?
I loved it so much. I loved everything about it. I love the fact that we get all these really strong friendship groups and just everything about it. Just, I feel like it tackles really hard things, but it does it in a way that feels natural and normal as opposed to like preachy or saccharine. It's not like, oh well, I fell in love, so everything is easy and fine now and all of my flaws are gone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it dealt with a lot of tough topics and none of it felt forced in any
Right.
way. The way I sometimes feel like it is like, oh, you're trying to get a message across, but this was just so
Right.
organic and authentic, I felt, and just like really hit the mark in that regard. Rachael, what did you think?
I thought it was beautifully written and really sad, but at the same time, like hopeful and uplifting, you know, especially, you know, as she's learning lessons and learning about herself and trying to figure out what she really wants out of life. I really appreciated the journey that the main character went on. And yeah, I really liked this book a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I loved that it was a coming of age story for someone in their late 20s because I think that is so relatable these days. People are kind of coming into what we consider adulthood or like taking on the traditional trappings of adulthood later and later. You know, for the main character, it's because she's in grad school and she's been in school for so long. But I feel like a lot of people are, you know, living at home longer to save money or for whatever reason. And, you know, the job market isn't, you know, great. So it can be hard to find a job. So I feel like this is a thing that a lot of people probably are going through, just like trying to figure out who you are, maybe later on than most coming of age stories typically focus on. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I agree.
One
The writing
thing-
was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Very beautiful. I also felt like it was kind of sad, especially in Act 1. And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the whole book if the tone stayed the same as it was in Act 1 throughout, but luckily it didn't. It definitely shifts, and I think that was intentional, and it definitely was worked really well. So do we want to get into Act 1?
Sure.
One thing I really liked is that she had a plan, like really like a proper noun, capital P plan. And I feel like when I was growing up, I was always told, oh, you know, like you're going to do well in school and then you're going to go to college and then you're going to get a really good job. And that isn't really the way that it works anymore. Like, I went to college, I graduated from college, but I feel like now if I were to need to switch careers, I would have to get a master's or a couple of masters or keep going and get a doctorate and probably learn a couple of other languages. And it just, I don't know, like just having a plan isn't enough anymore.
Yeah, I there's a line in the book because I love I think it's Sharon or Sharon, her stepmom.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um it's spelled Sharon or Sharon, but she's kind of talking to her and she's saying like, well, I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z. I'm supposed to follow this plan, right? And her stepmom's like, so you're not supposed to do anything but be black and die. Like there's really no other like guarantees. So anything else you do is just, gravy. So I just was like, oh wow.
Wow, yeah, yeah. And
Oh, go ahead.
I found it very interesting, her stepmother, and just how juxtaposed she was from her father, the colonel.
Yeah, they were such a balance to each other because she was so, understanding and light, whereas the colonel was very strict and very like, you need to do this. These are the expectations. You're a porter. This is what porters do. Is that the line?
Yeah, porters don't, or porters do. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a good place to start, I think. So in the first act of the book, we start in Vegas where she wakes up and she's kind of disoriented and she's with her two best friends. And she's like, something happened last night. And she realizes she got married, but she can't remember the woman's name. She just has her card with a note, right? And she can, and like the scent, I think this is where like the sensory part of the book really comes into play. She has like a scent of seawater and salty air that she remembers. But she doesn't tell her friends what happened. And she definitely doesn't tell her dad, the colonel, because she knows that he would flip his lid because he is just very strict. He wanted her to go to med school and become a medical doctor. She decided to do her PhD in astronomy. And she has this like memory of him walking out of her PhD graduation ceremony. And so she's like, no matter what I do, I'm going to be a disappointment. She thinks he thinks she's a disappointment. But a question about the colonel is, in what ways was the colonel a good father? And in what ways was he unsupportive or not a great parent?
It felt like his love was very conditional. He did not have patience for weakness. Even if it's just momentary, I don't know what to do weakness. It's like, you're a porter. You don't do that.
Right. Yeah, he didn't leave her any room for, I mean, just human error even, and it was very militaristic, of course, with him being in the military, but and I think when I was thinking about this question, I was considering, like, obviously most of the book I'm extremely frustrated with him. I'm very angry that he treats Grace the way he treats her and that he doesn't give her the support she needs to just be herself and let that be enough, while at the same time trying to see things from his perspective and trying to recognize what I'll never understand about the Black experience and being a Black man and a Black father and the expectations he probably puts on himself and how he sees that reflected in her as well.
Yeah.
And I just found that dynamic very frustrating, but very interesting at the same time.
It is interesting. And I kept thinking, well, clearly his intentions are good, right? I mean, clearly he's thinking about what probably all parents think about is, I want my kid to have a better life and have it, easier than I did. And he knows that it won't be easy for her.
Right.
And he also experienced her mom, who he was married to, a white woman, kind of just leaving and like going off and doing her own thing and kind of not being able to deal with being a parent, at least at that point when Grace was very young. Right. So, and he probably saw that and was like, well, my daughter can't do that. The world wouldn't be kind to her for making those choices. So I need to be overly, strict so that she doesn't end up like that, because it will just be even worse for her. So I think that's where the motivation comes from. Obviously, he doesn't employ the best tactics,
Right.
kind of like mentally breaking her down little by little. And it's frustrating because you can see him he's kind of a robot with Grace, right? But with other people, he's not. Like he is always very grumpy, but with his wife, he's like, you can see him joking around and being a human. And it's like frustrating. It's like, why can't you just like be normal with your daughter? She's an adult now.
Yeah.
She'll be fine.
I know. Like he forgets her birthday one time.
I know.
It was sad.
That's sad. Yeah. So the other kind of mentor figure in her life at this time that she has a scene with is her academic advisor, who was her mentor in grad school, who set her up on a job interview with this firm that she has close connections with, this science lab. And the interview doesn't go well. They are questioning Grace's abilities and integrity and, all sorts of microaggressions. And she ends up walking out.
They mention like that she doesn't seem to be the type of person that would fit with their culture.
Right. Not the right fit.
Yeah. Just very,
stuff that I'm sure, Black women hear all the time and but she walks out. She's not going to sit there and be treated like that.
Right.
And her advisor, I think, just kind of assumed like, oh, Grace is super smart. She's my superstar student. She's going to nail it. And doesn't even think about how it might be different for her.
Right. And even after the fact, when she finds out what went wrong, I just feel like she didn't really give Grace the room to talk about why what happened. And it's almost like she was disappointed in Grace for, and she does express support for Grace and like, I'll still help you. I'll help you.
Yeah.
I believe in you and all this stuff. But I think she just doesn't get it. Like she just doesn't take the time to really like sit with the fact that like, that it's like white feminism, right? Like, oh, you're strong, independent woman, I did it, you can do it too. And it's like, well, she has a lot other barriers that you don't have. And I don't think she just didn't realize that.
Yeah, it would never occur to me that people I would know in a professional setting would say anything like what they said to Grace. Like, oh, I just don't know that you would fit in with our culture. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like, you look like someone who wouldn't put raisins in potato salad or whatever. Like, that's
gross.
Yeah. Like, not the best look. So I do understand why the advisor wouldn't initially be like, what happened? Why did you do that? I don't think she really got that much of the benefit of the doubt, which is sad because we hadn't even known Grace all that long, but you could tell she wouldn't be the person who would just get up and leave for no reason.
Right.
What do you think about, because later on it seems like because the advisor does support her and saying like, take some time off, think about your options. We'll, like, we're not going to give up, but you can take a break, right? Like, I feel like she's supportive in that. And then later sends her a letter and offers a couple of opportunities that Grace might consider, one of which being she could reschedule the interview with that lab. And I just wouldn't, what did you, because she also offers a different opportunity that Grace could explore that I think probably would be a better fit. But just even like bringing that up, I wondered, does she still not get it that she's offering this again? Or is she saying like we need, or is she saying like, it's important to have you in these kinds of spaces?
Right. That's a tough one. Yeah, it's hard to say.
Because like, why would, Grace in the end, spoiler alert, makes the right decision. She's like, no, I'm not going to give them another chance. Like,
Right.
It's not them giving me another chance. I'm not going to give them another chance. They blew it, which is like, yes, exactly. So, but I didn't know what to think about the professor even like considering letting her star pupil go back to that place. I just think she should have like said, and she should have said, I'm not sending you any more students if you're going to act like that.
Right.
That makes her look bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to think that it was, you know, you deserve to be in these kinds of spaces. This is how change is made. Or you need to see that you still have options. It's not like, oh, well, you closed this door, so now you're getting funneled this way.
Right.
I want to think that. I don't know that I do.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think overall Grace and her advisor have a good relationship. And yeah, like Rachael, like you said, she has these blind spots that I don't know she ever fully understands exactly what Grace is going through, but she's trying.
Yeah. And I like to think that, you know, after the end of the book, at some point, Grace gets to the mental place where she feels comfortable opening up to her advisor and spelling it out of like, listen, there was a lot going on that you were blind to. And I know that that's not, you know, that's your upbringing and you didn't like, that's not something that you would naturally think of, but like, you know, like, did she ever even tell her about that conference that she was sent home from because she was accused of not using her own research?
That part made me so mad.
I know.
Same.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, after Grace meets with her advisor and she, you know, tells her dad the job didn't work out and she's gotten married to this woman, she decides to find her wife. So she decides to go to New York and she's leaving behind this group of friends. She has Jimena and Agnes, who are her two friends who she lives with. And then Raj and Mira, whose dad owns this tea shop that she works at. And they're her best friends as well. They're kind of like her adopted family or chosen family.
That's that dynamic is so sweet to me. Just that they've, you know, just welcomed her into their family and treat her like another sibling. It's so sweet.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the dynamic between Grace and Jimena real quick, because I wasn't sure if at the beginning it was implied that they had a romantic relationship or if they were just super close and then kind of so in each other's lives that when Agnes comes in, Jimena feels guilty about how she feels about Agnes and wanting her to be a part of their group, which works out. They all become best friends. But I wasn't sure if there was some other dynamic there that was just being implied at. I wasn't sure.
I don't know. Kelly, what do you think?
I definitely thought they were just really close friends. And I do have friends with people like, you know, we would be considered an ambiguously coupled duo.
Right.
But there is also a very real tendency for people to stay, like lesbians specifically, to stay in each other's lives even after they break up. Like, there's tons of jokes about it.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, did they initially maybe have a romantic connection, but then decided they just wanted to be best friends? It's not really spelled out, but I also wonder if the author is representing polyamory with these characters, especially at the end, because Mira ends up moving in with Agnes and Jimena, and I do think they're a throuple at that point. So I think that is heavily hinted at. But I mean, regardless, they have a very close bond. And I do actually kind of like that it's ambiguous, because it's kind of like, well, does it really matter? Like, these people love each other. Friendship love is just as important as romantic love. And people can be your family. It doesn't have to be like you're married for someone to be your family. So I really loved that.
Yeah, I definitely Jimena gave me very much like mother hen vibes. Like, she's the mom of the group and she takes care of everybody.
For sure.
You know, she takes home strays, as she puts it.
That is so true.
So yeah, I you know, I can see even if they were never romantically involved, just the relationship of it being sort of almost like a caretaker. Just getting them that closeness. But yeah, I love her friends.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
So then she goes to New York and she meets up with Yuki. They have this really cute way of like talking on the phone before they meet in person. That's just, oh,
I know.
Stars in my eyes. They're so adorable.
And Yuki is the one that gives her the nickname Honey Girl.
Yes.
Because of her hair. It's so romantic.
It's so romantic.
I love it.
Yeah, so let's talk about Yuki as a character. I mean, I was a little worried that Yuki was going to be kind of manic pixie dream girl vibes, and I don't think she was. I think she was flawed and also breathtaking in a lot of ways and funny. And as soon as she met up with Yuki, the whole tone of the book changed for me and became so much lighter. And like I felt like a weight had been lifted once she was with Yuki. And I just think that's a testament to Morgan Rogers's writing.
Yeah, setting the scene for sure. Yeah, I love Yuki. I think that she is a breath of fresh air for Grace, because she's not so tied down to a plan, capital P plan, as Kelly put it. She's like, you know what, I do what I like to do. When I get inspired, I record an episode of my radio show, and all I care about is connecting with people. Like, people are what matters.
Yeah.
Sorry if you can hear my lawnmower.
That's okay. Yeah, I agree. I love, there's a part where Yuki's just so funny to me. And there was this one part, I need to find it. Where are my notes? It's like she can't do something. She's like, oh no, I'm too busy. I need to crawl into a dark hole and bury my head. I'm very busy, very booked. Because she does something that she's embarrassed by. It's just, there's all these little quips like that that just, love it.
Yeah.
I love her so much. I love the radio show.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Kelly, talk about the radio show.
She tells all these really interesting stories, or she'll update various bits of folklore and apply it to modern day. Everything about it, that is a show that I would listen to all the time.
Yeah, lots of paranormal stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
That's actually my favorite part, when they would get intel about a various like urban legend creature, and if it was at all within driving distance, which they made a very loose term, like, can we get there in about a day or so? Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, she goes like monster hunting basically. So I wanted to talk about that, because I was wondering if you think that the way Yuki hunts for monsters, and Grace is kind of skeptical of it, right? She's like, do you really believe this? Why are you like doing this? This is not, to me, that felt like a metaphor for the monsters or the demons that we battle in our heads. And Yuki is the kind of person that would face that head on, right? And go looking for it and want to talk about it and deal with it. And she even says something like, to the effect of like, well, these people are lonely. That's why they're reaching out to me. And like, if I can help them in any way by, taking this seriously and tracking it down, or like doing anything like to make them feel less alone, like, why wouldn't I do that? And Grace is just kind of like, skeptical in the beginning, but and also skeptical of therapy, right? So I just kind of wondered if you feel like maybe that was an intentional metaphor. I don't know.
I like that idea a lot, but I think it also just really highlights one of the big differences between Grace and Yuki, Yuki. I keep calling her Yumi and I don't know why. But that Grace doesn't really have time for fun. I think she would consider that a giant waste of time, which is a thing that I think is true for a lot of people. And, for Yuki and her friends, it's like, well, let's spend an afternoon together, hanging out, talking, having fun. And, probably no, we won't see whatever it is we're looking for because it doesn't exist, but it'll be a really fun time.
Yeah. Yeah, like not everything we do has to like result in something. It can
Right.
just be in the moment. We can just be living in the moment.
Right. And Yuki has her roommates. She lives with 3 guys. I love all those boys.
I know, they're great.
So it's another great friendship group. Another found family.
Yeah.
Do we think when Grace goes to New York, was she running away from her problems?
I would say more avoiding having to make a hard decision. Like, so just sort of postponing her problems.
Yeah. Like, I think she was hoping that things maybe would sort themselves out in her absence, because it's like in the, synopsis, it was saying that she's suffering from burnout. She really was. I mean, when you really like read up the definition of burnout and all this stuff, like she really was suffering from burnout. It was very apparent. And I think Kelly's right, like the avoidance was really the big thing, not necessarily running from, but just ignoring its existence. Like, just gonna go to New York and pretend like my life in Portland doesn't exist right now.
Well, she got married, which was probably like a reaction to everything that was going on, and just like needed to do something to like completely give her an excuse maybe to not deal with her life. It's like, well, I have to go deal with this. I got married.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also think it was very brave of her to just pick up and go to New York and move in with Yuki. And like,
that's true.
It could have ended in disaster. They don't know each other.
They don't know each other, total strangers.
But, obviously they love each other. So I know.
I love it.
That's Act 2. And then by the end of Act 2, she and Yuki end up having a fight. And Grace runs off again, this time to Florida to spend some time with her mom, who she's not estranged from. They still talk, but they just don't see each other that often. Her mom and her fiance are kind of always off traveling. Her mom lives on this orange grove in Florida, which is where Grace was born. So I guess we can talk about their relationship a little bit and how Grace's mom's absence affected her.
It's so tough because it's like, I still don't really understand what happens to kind of like lead to that dynamic of Grace's mom choosing to, and I don't know, maybe she was really young when she got married and had a kid and just like never got to really live her life. But yeah, she didn't see Grace a ton. Of course, they lived on opposite sides of the country, so that's tough. And Grace did go visit her. But it's almost like Grace didn't really feel like her mom was much of a safety net or much of like a constant in her life. She was just like, well, sometimes my mom's available to me and sometimes not.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I wasn't really sure why, like when the divorce happened, I guess she just chose to stay, and it was, the Colonel was seen as like the one that she should go live with. It reminds me though of like when we've had conversations about characters that are ineffectual mothers and how that's way more common than I think, we really talk about in society. And some people just, they have kids, but they're not effective as parents. And it's like, it's almost like it's societally, socially acceptable, there we go, for
Yeah.
a man to not be a good dad, or to be like a dad who's just kind of around sometimes. Like, we get that, but with a mom, it's like, oh, you're a bad person then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that's it's more complicated than that, you know?
Right. And I never like reading the book, I never thought of Grace's mom as like a bad mom or a bad person. I just, I felt sad that, Grace didn't feel like she had her mom all the time. And probably that's just me projecting, like, my God, my mom is like the number one constant person in my life.
Right. Yeah.
I think too, though, the only reason we don't consider her mom to be a bad mom or a bad person is because we're only seeing her now that Grace has grown up. Like, if we saw her when Grace was like younger, especially probably before she was a teenager, and she wasn't there, I mean, I'm sure we would all be a lot more judgy about it.
Right.
True.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think that though the author definitely treats it with like the nuance that it deserves, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Like, none of her characters are one-dimensional, right? Like, it's so good. She's so good. She did. I mean, is this her debut?
It is. Yeah.
It's a great achievement for a debut novel. So
I'm super impressed by this book.
And another big theme in the book is mental health, obviously. And I think specifically, in the Black community, it hasn't always been historically like accepted for people to seek mental health counseling. And now I think it's being talked about more, which is absolutely amazing, because I mean, everyone deserves to be able to care for their mental health. But at the end of the book, towards the end of the book, she starts seeing a therapist. So I think the book does touch on like kind of the inequities in mental health care as well.
Yeah. Like, we know, like in real life, that there are very few therapists that are people of color, especially Black male therapists are very, very rare and hard to find. So, Black men seeking mental health treatment can be hard for them to find a therapist that they can feel connected to and that they can feel like they understand their situation. But also Black women, sort of the same, in the same issue. And I just found it really interesting what they show for like the different therapists that she sees, that she tries out before finding the right one for her. And I think I like that they show that too, because I think people, they try a therapist, and if they don't connect with them, they think, well, therapy's not for me. And it's like, we need to normalize, like, no, try again. That, not every therapist is going to be the right one for you.
I loved that they showed like two therapists and then the right one. The third one was the right one. And it's like, I was like, this is a movie montage. The ridiculousness of the first two.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anything else about that before we wrap up? I mean, she gets a happy ending at the end. Her mom gets married. Yuki shows up with a grand gesture. So I was wondering, given that ending, do we consider this a romance novel?
I don't, but I think it's very much a love story. Obviously with Grace and Yuki, but also like Grace and her friends and Yuki's friends, and she gets her mom back. Like, and her dad is better. And I mean, I just everything about it. I loved everything about it.
Yeah. I do like that she starts opening up and being honest with people like her dad, and just saying like, listen, this, like, she confronts him about the graduation thing, and then he opens up to her about his insecurities and his worry for her. And, the fact that he was the only Black man in that room, like all of her graduating classmates were white. And he said, I just couldn't, handle the thought that you had to navigate through this career of, all these barriers that were there for you.
By yourself without my help.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it just, so heartbreaking.
And that made so much sense why he pushed her towards medicine, because he was like, I can help you there. Right. I have connections. I'm established and I'm respected in this field. So you'll have a leg up. And it just, that was when I was like, oh, it makes so much sense why you're such a jerk sometimes. Because you were so worried for her with good reason. Like, right. He's proven right with that awful lab that treats her so badly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. She grows so much. And I agree. It's not genre fiction, right? I mean, what we would consider genre fiction romance. Not that there's anything wrong with those books, but I think for me, the biggest difference between, even though it has a happily ever after, or not happily ever after, but like a happy ending, it's a love story. It's so much more character driven than it is plot driven. And I think of romance novels and genre fiction in general as very plot driven. So I just thought I thought we should chat about that, because I have seen this categorized as romance in certain places, and I don't think that's exactly correct, but it is a love story in more ways than one.
Right. Yeah. Like, I know Book of the Month, I think, categorized as contemporary fiction, but I almost think it's literary fiction.
I agree. But originally they had it as romance, I think.
Oh, did they? Oh,
yeah. Okay. And then I think they changed it because people were like, I don't think this is romance. It's definitely not a rom-com. But yeah, I would agree that it's literary fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it even more after this conversation.
What?
I love it even more after this conversation.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. What are your ratings?
I don't remember.
1 billion stars.
Yeah. I think I gave it 4.5 maybe or so. Let me go on my story graph.
I did 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I gave it 4.5. I thought it was so good.
I gave it 4. And I think like every time we do one of these book clubs, I end up loving the book so much more after the conversation.
Yeah. I feel like I could.
It shows like talking about books will make you love a book even more.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know now that we've talked about it, I almost want to change it to a 5-star. Just
you can.
Yeah,
I probably will.
It was great though. I mean, I think like I said, like Act 1, I was a little bit like it was slower for me, and then by Act 2, when she gets to New York, I couldn't put it down. So I should upgrade it to 5, but definitely highly recommended.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you come visit, we should do a monster hunting podcast and go look for Chessie, because we have our own Loch Ness monster type thing living in the Chesapeake Bay. Nice. Chessie, this is actually true. There are reports of a similar sea monster. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that sounds fun. Great.
So that is our show. If you have not joined Libro FM, you can use promo code What You Should Read, all one word. Get your first month 2 books for the price of 1. Honey Girl is available on audio.
And be sure to follow us on social media. We are at WYSR_podcast on Instagram and on Twitter. We're on Goodreads at What You Should Read Podcast. You can email us at whatyoushouldreadpodcast@gmail.com. And please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts.
And now you know what you should read.
You're welcome.
You know what you should read.
It's time for What You Should Read, the podcast all about the titles you need. Join 3 book lovers and a guest as they cover all the best new titles to enjoy with your tea.